Go ahead. What?
Don't upload YouTube videos when you've been drinking because you get off on other tangents without realizing
Girl, you're gonna shut your fucking mouth right there.
it.
Alright, what's up, peeps? This is the distance. Julian Williams. I was trying to upload a video, but I had gotten like so far into the discussion that the video just cut off on me because I'm using a webcam right now. I'm not using my webcam. I'm using like a webcam right now, and I'm making this video right, and all of a sudden in the middle of the video it just cuts off like right at 15 minutes. So that's why I'm so glad that I just use my HD cam these days, and I don't use webcam because it just cuts off like even like I'm a YouTube partner, and it cuts off in like 15 minutes. But I was getting really deep into this boxing discussion, like I really was. I was getting extremely deep into this boxing discussion.
Getting
I was even
emotional.
yeah, I was getting emotional and like I was like really getting into this boxing discussion about fanboys and sport of boxing. I'm responding to Overlord Crow because he was talking about Pactards being the pretty much being trouble in the in boxing discussion today, the worst part of boxing discussion. And then I turned around, and I got worked up, and I got worked up like in the middle of the video, and and like I'm flipping off the camera, and stuff, talking about fuck you if you're offended by it. And all of a sudden, like I look at the camera, and it's all of a sudden it's just like turned off. Like I'm like, what the fuck is this? But anyway, I've been drinking tonight, so I'm just a little happy, muffled. It's a simple, it's that typical Saturday night distance video after I've been drinking for a while. And not only that, I'm not even gonna be on YouTube for a while because I got some stuff that I'm going through over the next month or so. So I'm not even gonna have time to be on YouTube. But when I come back, I'll probably be dressed up in black and be playing ACDC Black and Black. Um, and all that stuff. No, not really, because my return is not that important. I'm just like if I return, it's just like a normal upload returning. That's really all that is. I'm not gonna make a big deal about coming back to YouTube. That's just me. Um, but overall, Overlord Crow had a great video actually on Pactars being the biggest problem in boxing discussion today. And me, I'm just gonna talk about my own experiences with boxing discussion. My problem with boxing discussion is going against is boxing fans versus boxing fanboys. That is always, and I've always mentioned that that's been my biggest problem with boxing discussion today. I can't, I have trouble debating with boxing fanboys, and the reason being is because a lot of boxing fanboys don't see weaknesses in their fighters, and they don't believe that their fighter can never be beaten. And I know this because I was a boxing fanboy when Roy Jones was the number one fighter in the world back in the '90s. Hell, I was the biggest Roy Jones fan. After Montel Griffith too, I thought Roy Jones was the greatest ever, ever. I thought he was the greatest ever, like hands down. I thought Roy Jones was the greatest fighter in like the history of boxing. I didn't even know anything about like any of the other fighters. I didn't know that Sugar Ray Robinson fought X amount of fights. I didn't know that Muhammad Ali were in these legendary fights. I just cared about Roy Jones. The same way that when I watch basketball, when I first started watching, like when Michael Jordan played, I knew hands down Michael Jordan was probably the greatest player to ever play. When I watch football, being in Texas, a lot of people are like, Emmitt Smith is the greatest running back to ever play football. I think personally, I think it's Marcus Allen. I like Marcus Allen or Jerry Rice, but you knew when you saw Jerry Rice play that you were going to see something special. And with Roy Jones, when he fought, you knew you were going to see something special. Remember the Glenn Kelly fight in 2002? Don't forget the Glenn Kelly fight. Remember, Mike McCallum, Virgil Hill. Remember those fights? Those are fights you straight up just can't forget. Fights you can't forget, and fights that will never, leave your mind when you think of Roy Jones if you follow him for X amount of years. But overall, a lot of boxing fanboys believe they have a different approach to believing things. If you ask me, they just have a different approach to believing things, and I know this because I was a boxing fanboy, and I'm talking from a fanboy slash fan perspective. I look at I look at say one fighter I'm a huge fan of. I'm a huge fan of Vladimir Klitschko. Even though many perceive his fights to be boring and stuff, I'm a huge fan of Vladimir Klitschko. I like probably the reason being is because I look at is looking at his career. He was knocked out by Corey Sanders. Not only was he knocked out by Corey Sanders, but he was knocked out, later by Layman Brewster. But he's gone on to become like the number one heavyweight in the world. Um, After these devastating losses, and he continues to get better and use those as learning experiences and building blocks for his career. He even had a loss against Ross Purity, who had like a draw against Tommy Morrison in like '94. So I look at that and I'm like, this dude is using. I think personally, I think Vladimir is probably the best pound for pound fighter in the world today. And we won't really know until July the 2nd against when he fights David Haye whether or not Vladimir is really the best fighter in the world. Um, People hold the heavyweights to very high acclaim. And Vladimir Klitschko is probably the best in the world, but networks don't want to air his fights, unfortunately. Manny Pacquiao, I think, is probably second to Vladimir. I will never call Manny Pacquiao the greatest fighter of all time. And pretty much no fighter of the past will ever, or no fighter right now will ever be a fighter of the past, unless, they're a journeyman. Only a journeyman is going to get like 200 fights in their career. If there's a fighter that's going to get like 100, 200 fights in their career, then Saul Alvarez might as well just continue fighting. Like, should just fight every month, something along those lines. Um, I thought if anybody was going to hit that 200 mark, it would be Saul Alvarez. But he's like 20 years old. He's already a champion, and we'll see with him. But overall, nobody's gonna relive the past with the fights. Nobody's ever gonna be able to recreate that era, that golden age of boxing. Nobody's ever gonna fight, that era. Due to the fact that there's so many belts, there's so many different fighters. Not only there's so many different fighters, but also the trouble of making a lot of these fights happen in the politics behind the sport right now that have affected the sport. And I won't get into the politics of the sport. I don't get into this thing to where, all right, this fighter doesn't fight this guy because of X amount of money. I don't look at things like I don't look at that that WWE type logic of, oh, how many seats will this fight sell? How many seats will that fight sell? I never looked at it like that. But a lot of idiots like to look at that shit, and it is what it is. I'm not gonna judge you for it, but I think it's pointless to look at the number of seats that a specific fight sells or whether this, that, and the other fight gets X amount of money. We just want to see good fights and we want to see the best fight the best. And we don't even see it these days. But when it comes to boxing discussion, a lot of fanboys don't even want to debate you. They don't really debate. It's like, this is why my fighter is good. He doesn't have any weaknesses, but he's good. He's great. And your fighter sucks. And it is what it is. We see it all the fucking time in the sport. This guy ain't shit. This guy sucks. This guy can't do this. What's this guy gonna do when this thing happens? And I'm like, what's the point of that? A lot of people can't debate logically. They can't debate through observation. And that's my problem with boxing discussion today. Not necessarily Pacquiao fans, not necessarily Floyd Mayweather fans, but people that can't debate. People don't know how to debate. And they can't turn around and bring their points up without being fanboys and without sounding like real nut huggers, to be honest. That's my problem with boxing debate. But hey, I don't know what you guys think, but that's just my opinion. So anyway, guys, before this video gets cut off like the last time, I'm about to get off here. But anyway, that was Distance. Thanks for watching. Peace.